I think has already peaked. I think it is going to gradually fall.
In this video, I'm going to give you a bunch of examples of how inflation is coming down. Also, I'm going to provide you a clarification. There's a lot of blowback from that last video, and I realized I didn't do a good job communicating what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to clarify that for you guys in this video.
Things that were down last month: airfares, used cars, apparel.
Also, with the cryptocurrency debacle and the prices coming down, the FTX chaos that's happening, and it's gotten worse since I put the script together even. A few things have happened. I'm just going to touch on that very briefly because I think you guys should start getting your head set up to take action. There will be a good buying opportunity among Bitcoin and Ethereum only, not the other ones. So that's approaching now, and you want to start thinking about it ahead of time so that when it's time to act, which I'll tell you when that will be, then you can act. And lastly, in this video, I very much want to tell you why I banned somebody for life from the Peter Leeds YouTube channel. I don't often do that, but there's a reason I did it. I want to talk about it. I know you guys know that nothing in this video is personalized trading advice for you. We're just talking here.
While prices remain painful for many American families, tonight, early signs sky-high inflation may have finally peaked. Year-over-year price growth dipped below 8% in October for the first time since February.
So before we get into a bunch of inflation or declining inflation examples, said not by me, but by other professionals in the industry, which I'll show you. Before we get into that, I want to clarify something from the last video. And I believe that the responsibility is on the communicator, not the communicatee. So if there's any misunderstanding, I take total responsibility and I apologize for that. I'm not saying inflation is zeroing out. I'm not saying that you don't have to worry about inflation anymore. I know when you go to the grocery store and answer your question, yes, I've been to 3 grocery stores in the last week and a half. He says, have you ever been to a grocery store? Prices have already started coming down on a lot of things, not everything. Some things still cost more. Still, when you go to the grocery store, you're paying a certain percentage more for that same grocery bill. And I can even show you approximately how much more you're paying than a year ago, give or take on average.
Despite inflation, some grocery prices are falling. Market research firm Nielsen IQ looked at the cost of packaged and fresh foods. Their data shows the average unit price for mixed vegetables tracked in late summer fell 68% compared to the same time a year ago. Prices for fruits like tangerines and dates dropped as well. Packaged baked goods prices, like for bagels, fell nearly 50%.
But the point is that this rampant inflation everyone's expecting is not happening, and now things are turning the corner. Some things are getting cheaper, some things cost more still, I know that, but they are all rounding the corner. A lot of things are going to be coming down. On balance, inflation will be lower from month to month, just like it has been for many months now.
No doubt about it. Inflation at 7.7%, still a really high number, but at least we're moving in the right direction. We were expecting a number of 7.9%. We got better than that. Remember, inflation was at 8.2% in September, and back in June, 9.1%. We're still hanging out near a 40-year high. Prices month over month up 0.4%. That was also better than expected. But this is sort of a rare breath of fresh air when it comes to inflation.
This is from The Economist. Global shipping costs are plunging as the world economy slows. The receding snarl-ups in trade may help restrain inflation.
One quick statistic for you, John. The prices paid index from the ISM manufacturing data has collapsed to 46.6 as of October. Back in March, it was above 87. There's about a 6-month lead time from that index over the headline CPI.
This is from CNBC. The U.S. CPI in October represented a huge inflection point in the battle against inflation and likely makes the start of a months-long deflationary phase. That's from Adam Crisafulli at Vital Knowledge, and he's absolutely right. And this is my premise. This is what I'm telling you to expect. You can go along with everybody that's talking about how inflation's going up so much higher and you feel it on your grocery bill. I know you do. I'm telling you ahead of time that this isn't going to be an ongoing thing. We're starting to get into a months-long deflationary phase, as was indicated by Adam Crisafulli of Vital Knowledge.
Mike, answer this one for me. Do you think inflation can fall as quickly as it rose?
Yeah, I think it can fall quite rapidly if the economy is slowing significantly, and I do think there is evidence of that. We've had a lot of volatility in the GDP statistics and a lot of confusion, but if you look at real final sales for the private sector, we've lost a tremendous amount of momentum over the course of the last 3 quarters. And in fact, Q3 was essentially stall speed.
This is from CNN. In fresh produce, the average price for prepared mixed vegetables dropped. Take a guess, you guys. What do you think? It dropped 68% versus the same period last year. A lot of fresh seafood options are cheaper as well. Striped bass fell 41.8% over the prior year, while the cost of lobster is also down 7.2%. Some packaged goods, such as assorted bagels, fell, take a guess, 48%. Bakery sweet goods and cranberry sauce are also seeing declining prices just in time for the holidays.
Wages, rents, course, services, inflation. That's going to take a bit more time, but I do think those numbers are going to be moving down as we get into next year with much weaker growth and probably a recession.
Okay, for this next part, listen to what he says about how it's so much more important to watch the monthly rather than the annual. And that's what I was saying in the last video too. They're comparing it to a low base to try and freak you out. Costs are coming down. Inflation is coming down. And if you're not feeling it yet, as most of you aren't, and if you're not seeing it yet, it has to do with the fact that a lot of those things are still inflated and they have not yet begun to fall, like most of the other things. But as everything declines, that'll be another thing that will lag a bit, a few months, and then will decline. Listen to this next part, what he says about how you got to watch the monthly, not the annual. That's my point.
The thing about this, the most important number to come out of this monthly report is not the year over year. It's that monthly core inflation.
The inflation curve is dramatically priced to fall, and that could be an opportunity for investors to say, look, maybe it's a good time to be adding some.
Now, this next part is about the UK economy, and I want to point it out because this is an example of what we're in for next. The UK is a little bit ahead of us, but I think that a lot of what they're facing, just as they had a big pension crisis, what they're facing happened first, and I think we're going to face a lot of the same stuff next because we're making all the same wrong moves.
The British economy shrank in the third quarter, marking the start of what's expected to be a protracted recession. Gross domestic product fell 0.2%. Consumer spending and business investment both fell during the quarter. The Bank of England sees the recession persisting into the middle of 2024.
And I told you that a lot of the inflationary pressures are coming out of China because if they have a policy and they lock down everything, that screws up the ports. The shipping is having a harder time trying to get goods out of the country, to America mainly, but out of the country. And now they're starting to gradually lessen some of the restrictions. They have a zero policy. They catch one person who's got at Disneyland, they shut down the whole park and people go for the day of fun and they stay there for a week or two until they can prove they don't before they let them out of the park. It's almost medieval the way that they're treating this, but there's a lot of port lockdowns and shipping snarls because of the way that China is being so aggressive with their concerns. And it's actually going to backfire because if you keep your population from an illness that they need to get stronger against and you hold them back from that, and then just one day it gets into the population, and it will, then it's going to run rampant because it'll be when they first got it, the very first time. But the point is, as they change their approach a little bit, they loosen their aggression towards the total. That's going to have less of an effect on making inflation rise higher.
It's a significant recalibration of China's policy that has isolated the country. Beijing has reduced the amount of time travelers and close contacts must spend in. Now it's also pulling back on testing.
We learned inflation came down last month. And mainstream economists are saying this is a really positive sign of the resilience of the economic recovery. It's going to take time to get inflation back to normal levels. We can see setbacks along the way, I realize that. But we are laser focused on it.
Everyone is expecting the Fed to pivot. Everyone's expecting that pivot to happen soon. They're all banking on it. That's why we had such a rampant bullish run in the stock market the other day. Everyone's waiting for that inflection point or that point where we bottom out and then it's a V-shaped recovery and we'll all go back to normal. Understand that the Federal Reserve knows enough not to change course too soon. They're going to be adding more rate hikes going forward, not less. They will pivot one day, and that pivot will be a great day for things like gold. Have you guys been watching how strongly gold has been performing? It's been doing really well. I've been a little bit early on that one, but I'm loving how it's going now.
It's not enough to change the Fed's thinking. What it is enough to do is to start a countdown. And the Fed wants to see several months of declining inflation before it limits its rate.
And just so you don't accuse me of cherry picking examples, I did purposely show you a lot of examples of inflation coming down because that's what this video is about. But I'll show you also some of the things that are increasing in price. And a lot of these are the most significant for families, and that's why people get mad if I say that inflation is starting to come down. Take the win. It's going to be good. Things will get better. Prices will be lower going forward. You should be happy about that.
With Thanksgiving exactly 2 weeks away, holiday budgets are still stretched thin by the essentials. Groceries up more than 12% compared to last year, gas surpassing 17%, and rent soaring 7.5%. That's the largest increase in 4 decades.
When you look further into this report, though, the things that really matter to a household budget are still high. Food, energy, gas, still up year over year. Shelter, which makes up 2/5 of the overall consumer price index, also higher year over year.
And I put this part in with the restaurant owner because he talks about how much he's paying for eggs. And the egg prices are still higher. He's paying $1.50 right now for a dozen. And the most important thing, though, is pay attention to in his interview where he says how much he paid a month ago.
What are the essentials that are really hammering your business?
This past 2 months or so, it's been eggs, $1.50 for a dozen. And I think they peaked last month at like $4.20 or $4.25.
And this next part is about the cryptocurrency collapse that I told you was in this video. And things have happened since I put this whole script together and this whole video together. They're not allowing withdrawals anymore. There's another hack in the FTX system. A lot of people lost a lot of money. And is it over now? Well, there's one thing, then another thing, and then you think, okay, now that's all behind us and we're all good. But there will be more shoes to drop. Next one to go bankrupt will be BlockFi. A lot of regulators and analysts and investors are now looking deeper into the books of these companies that don't have any kind of proper regulation, proper oversight. There's going to be a lot more shoes to drop, a lot more damage before we get into a place where there's a buying opportunity. And I'm telling you, that's when there's a capitulation point. That's when you buy in heavily. You get into Bitcoin or Ethereum. If you want to play the cryptocurrency game, do not go near the altcoins. Most of these altcoins are doomed.
The world's third largest cryptocurrency exchange, FTX, filed for bankruptcy today. Its CEO and founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, also resigned. Earlier this week, FTX agreed to sell itself to rival Binance to avoid collapse, but Binance backed out of the deal. All this comes as several federal regulators have reportedly launched probes into FTX over its business practices.
And now I want to tell you why I banned somebody for life from this channel. The comment was directed at me. It was an insult, and if they don't agree with what I'm saying, I appreciate it when someone doesn't agree and they say, well, here's why, and I like to see that, and I like other people to see that too. But this gentleman is saying, why don't you get a shave? Something like that. So that me not shaving? I would love to shave. I want to point out that I'm in a small apartment, at my daughter's apartment on the Lower East Side. I can't stand up. I can't get to the sink. I can't get to the fridge. How am I going to shave? I can't even stand up to see in the mirror. I have to hold on to the sink with 2 hands if I stand up. Where am I going to grab the razor to shave? I have enough struggles just getting around in New York, let alone on a scooter in my daughter's tiny apartment where I can barely move. I got to back into the bathroom if I want to go in there.